Amelia Dyer was born the youngest of five, with three brothers, Thompson, James, and William, and a sister Anne, in a small village of Plymmarsh, just east of Bristol. The daughter of a master shoemaker, Samuel Hobley, and Sarah Hobley, Amelia learned to read, write, and developed a love of literacy and poetry. However, her childhood was marred by a mental illness of her mother caused by typhoid. Amelia, Amelia was witnessed her mother's violent fits and was obliged to care for her until she died in 1848. Research later comment on the effect this had on Dyer and what it taught her about the symptoms exacerbated by those who had appeared to lose their minds through the illness. Dyer had an older sister, Sarah Ann, who died in 1841 at age 6, and a younger sister also named Sarah Ann, who died in 1845, aged a few months. An older cousin had a daughter at the time who was later accepted as the daughter of the grandparent William and Martina Hobby, who were Dyer's aunt and uncle. After her mother's death, Amelia lived with her aunt in Bristol for a time before serving apprenticeship with a corset maker. Her father died in 1859, and her oldest brother Thompson inherited the family shoe business in 1861. At age 24, Amelia became permanently estranged from at least one of her brothers, James, and moved into a lodge in a street in Bristol. There she married George Thompson. George was 59, and they both lied about their ages. The marriage certificate to reduce an age gap between George deducted 11 years from his age. Amelia added 6 years to hers. Many sources later reported this age as fact, causing much confusion. After marrying George Thompson, Di trained as a nurse. From connecting with midwives early in days, she learned of an easy way to earn a living using her own home to provide a lodge to young women who had a conviction of legal inmate, then farming off the babies for adoption or allowing them to die of neglect and malnutrition. Dane was forced to decamp to the US shortly after meeting Amelia to escape the attention of the authorities. Unmarried mothers during the Victorian period often struggled to gain an income since the 1834 Poor Law Amendment Act had removed any finance obligation from the fathers of legal inmate children, whilst bringing up their children in a social where a single parenthood and legitimacy were stigmatized. This led to the practice of baby farming, in which the individual acted as adopting or fostering agency in return of a regular payment or a single upfront fee from the baby's mothers. Many businesses were set up to take in these young women and care for them until they gave birth. The mothers subsequently left the unwanted babies to be looked after as nurse children. The predicamency of the parents involved were often exploited for financial gain. If a baby had well-off parents who wanted to keep the birth a secret, the single fee might be as much as £18 and £15 might be neglect if the father of the child wanted to hush up his involvement. However, it was more common for these expert young women to be improved. Such women would be charged about £5 unsubscribed carers who resorted to starving the farming out babies to save money, even to hesitate deaf noises or demanding babies could be sedated with an easily available alcohol or opiate known as colloquially as a mother's friend. A syrup containing opiate was frequently chosen, but there were seven other similar preparations. Many other children died as a result of such doubles practice. Opiate kills far more infants through starvation than direct through overdose. Dr. Greenhow, investigator for the Privy Council, noted how children kept in a state of continuing narcotics will be thereby declining for food, but be but imperfect nourished. Death from severe malnutrition will result, but the coroner was likely to record the deaths as deliberate from the births or lack of breast milk or simply starving. Mothers who chose to reclaim or simple check on the welfare of their children could often encounter difficulties, but some would be simply too frightened or ashamed to tell the police about their suspicions or wondering. Even authorities often had problems tracing any children that were reported missing. This was the world opened up by the new Department Ellen Dane. Di had to leave nursing with the birth of her daughter Ellie Thompson in 1869. The eldest of George Thompson died. Amelia needed an income. Di was keen to make money from the baby farming and alongside taking in expenses. Women she advised to nurse and adopt a baby in return for a subsequent one-off payment and clothing for the children in her advantage. And meeting with the client, she was seeing them that she was responsible and married, and that she would provide a safe and loving home for the children. In 1872, Amelia married William Dyer, a brew labourer from Bristol. They had two children together, Marianne, also known as Polly, and William and Samuel. Amelia eventually left her husband at some point in her baby farming career. Di decided to forego the experience and inconvenience of letting the children die through neglect and starvation. Soon after the receipt of each child, she murdered them through allowing her to pocket most of all the fees. For some time, Dye alleged and resulted in interest of the police. She was eventually caught in 1879 after doctors were suspected about the number of children deaths he had been called to suffocate in Dyer's care. However, insisted of being convicted of the murder or manslaughter. She was sentenced to 6 months hard labour. The expense allegation almost destroyed her mentally through the others have experienced incredible at the lesson of the sentence when comparing of these handed out for lesser crimes at the time. Upon the release, she attempted to resume her nursing career. She had spell in a mental hospital due to the mental instability and suicide attempts. These always consider with times when it was convenient for her to disappear. Being a former asylum nurse, Di knew how to behave to ensure a relative comfortable existence in asylum inmate. Di appeared to have been beginning abusing alcohol and opiate-based products early in her killing career. Her mental instability could have been related to the subsequent abuse in 1890. Di cared for the illegal inmate babies of governors. When she returned to visit the, the children, the governors was immediately suspicious and stripped the babies to see if a birthmark was present on one of its hips. It wasn't an prolonged suspicion by the authorities led to Di having a legal breakdown. Di at one point drank 2 bottles of laudanum in a serious suicidal attempt, but her long-term use had built up intolerance to opioid products, so she survived and she returned to baby farming and murder. Di realized and follow of involving doctors to issue death certificate and began disposing of the bodies herself. The principal nature and extent of her activities again prompt unreliable attempts. She was alerted to attempt of the police, and the parents seek to reclaim their children. She and her family request a relocation to a different town and city to escape their suspicion and regular anomaly and to account a new business. Over the years, Di used a successful of aliases. In 1893, Di was discharged from her final commitment at the Somerset and Bath assignment near Wales. Unlike previously breakdowns, this had been the most disgrading experience and never entered another assignment for 2 years. Later, Dyer moved to Caversham in Berkshire, accompanied by unexpected associations Jane Granny Smith, who Dyer had recruited from a brief spell in a workhouse, and Dyer's daughter and son-in-law, Mary Ann, known as Polly, and Arthur Palm. This was followed by a move to 45 Kensington Road, Reading in Berkshire. Later that same year, Smith was pursued by Dyer to be a reference to as a mother in front of an innocent woman handing over their true child. This was an event to present the caring mother and daughter image. In January 1896, Evelyn Marmoon, a popular 25-year-old barmaid, gave birth to an illegal inmate daughter, Doris, in a boarding house in Clackham. She quickly sorted her offer of adoption, placed in an advertisement in the miscellaneous selector of Brazil Times Mirror newspaper. Simply read: "Wanted responsible woman take a young child. Marmoon intends to go back to work and hoping to eventually reclaim her child. Considered the next to her own." She was an advertisement reading: "Married couple with no family would adopt a healthy child in a nice country home, terms £10." Marmoon's response to Mrs. Harden. A few days later, she received a reply from Dyer from Oxford Road in Reading. Mrs. Hard wrote that I should be glad to have a dear baby girl once I could bring up and call my own. She continued, "We are planned a homely people in a fairly good circumstance. I don't want a child for money's sake, but the companion and home comfort. I and my husband are dearly fond of children. I have no children of my own. A child with me will have a good home and a motherly love." Every Marmoon wanted to pay more affordable weekly fee for the care of her daughter, but Mrs. Harden insisted on being given the one-off payment in advance. Marmoon was in a dire state, so she declined to agree to pay £10 a week. Later, Mrs. Hard arrived in Clackham. Ma was surprised by Dyer's advanced age and stocky appearance, but as Dyer was affectionate towards Doris, Evelyn handed over her daughter a cardboard box of clothes and £10. Still distressed at having to give up her care of her daughter, Evelyn accompanied Dyer to Clapham station and then on to Gloucestershire. She returned to her lodge and broke women. A few days later, she received a letter from Mrs. Harding saying all was well. Marmoon wrote back but received no reply. Dyer did not travel to Reading as she had told Marmoon. She went instead to 76 Mile Road, Whilst in London, where her 23-year-old daughter Polly was staying, there, Di quickly found some white edge tape used in dressmaking with a twist around the baby's neck and then tied a knot. The death would not have been imminently, Di later said. I used to like a watch them with the tape around their neck, but it would soon all be over with them. Both women alleged to help to wrap the bodies in a napkin. They kept some of the clothes Mahmoud had packed. The rest was dis- destroyed, for the bow broke. Di paid the rent to the unwitting landlady, gave her a pair of child boots as a present for her little girl. The following day, Wednesday, 1st of April, 1896, another child named Harry Simpson was taken to Maya Road, however, with no space white edging tape available. The length around Doris' scrot was removed and used to strangle the 13-month-old baby boy. On the 2nd of April, both bodies were stacked into a carpet bag along with bricks for added weight. Di then headed for Reading at the slickest spot she knew well, near a wire at the Cobham lock. She forced the carpet bag through the railing into the river. Unknowingly to Di, on the 30th of March 1896, a package was retrieved from the Thames at the Reading by a bargain man. The package Di dumped was not weighted equivalently and had been easily spotted and contained the body of a baby girl, later identified as Helen Fry. In the small detected force, the force was available to Reading Borough Police. Detective Constance Anderson made a criticism breakthrough, as well as finding a label from the Temple Med Station, Bristol. He used a microscope analysis of the wrapping paper and described a faint label name, Mrs. Thompson, and her address. This evidence was enough to lead the police to Di, but they still had no strong evidence to connect her directly with the serious crime. Added the evidence they gathered from witnesses and informant obtained from Bristol police only served to increase their concern, and D.C. Andrews with Sir James placed Di's home under surveillance, and subsequently intelligence suggested that Di would abscond if she came at all under suspicion. That the officers decided to use a young woman as a token, hoping that she would be able to secure a meet with Di, discuss her service. This may have been designed to help and detective to possibly link Di to her business and activities, or it may have simply given them a realistic opportunity to arrest her. Transparent that Di was expecting her new client, the decoy, to call, but insisted she found detectives waiting on her doorstep on 3rd of April, Good Friday, the police raided her home. They were struck by the structure of a human decomposing, and no human remains were found. There was, however, plenty of other related evidence, including the white edge tape, a telegram regarding adopting arrangements, pawn tickets for children's clothing, a receipt for the advertisement, a letter from their parents inquiring about the well-being of their children. The police counted that in the previous few months alone, at least 12 children had been placed in the care of Mrs. Thompson, and now released to be Amelia Dyer. It also appeared that she was about to move home again, this time to Somerset. This rate of murders she had lead to come astonished that Mrs. Dye may over a decade have killed over 400 babies, and children, making her one of the most prolific murders ever. Dye was arrested on the 4th of April and charged with murder. Her son-in-law Arthur Parr was charged as an associate. During April, Thomas was dragged and 6 more bodies were discovered, including Doris Marmoon and Harry Simpson, Dye's last victim. Each baby had been strangled with the white tape, which, as later told the police, was how you could tell it was one of mine. 11 days after handing her daughter to Dye, Olivia Marr, who named had emerged an item kept by Dye identifying her daughter's remains. Police photo of Dye after arrest in 1896 at the question into the death in early May. No evidence was found that Mary Ann and Arthur Palm had acted as Dye's accomplices. Arthur Palm was discharged as the result of her confession. Writing by Amelia Dye in reading, she wrote with her spelling and punctuation and preserve. Sir, I will kindly grant me a favour of pressing this to the magistrate on Saturday the 18th. Instead, I've made this statement out of for may not have the opportunity, then I must relieve my mind. I do know and feel my days are numbered on this earth, but I do feel it is an awful thing to draw an innocent people into the trouble I do know I should have to answer before my Maker in heaven for the awful crimes I have committed. But as God alone is my judge in heaven and on her earth, neither my daughter Mary Ann Palm or none of her husband Arthur Palm did most so declare neither of them had anything at all to do with it. They never had completed of doing such wicked things until it was too late. I'm speaking the truth, nothing but the truth. So, as I hope be forgiven, and I alone must stand before I making in heaven to answer to all witnesses my hand. Amelia Dye. 16th of April 1896. On the 22nd of May 1896, Dye appeared at the Old Bailey and pleaded guilty to one murder, that of Doris Moore. Her family associates testified at her trial that they had been growing suspicious uneasy about the activities and emerged that Dye had narrowly escaped discovery on several occasions. Ev- Evidence from the man who had seen and spoke to Dye when she disposed of the two bodies in the Clapham lock also proved significant of her daughter had given a graphic evidence that ensured Dye's conviction. The only defence of offers was insanity. She was being twice committed to asylum in Bristol. However, the process agreed successful that her rehab of a mental state had been prolonged. Avoided suspects, both committed, were said to have the terms when Dye was concerned. Her crimes may yet have been exposed. It took the jury only 4.5 minutes to find her guilty in the 3 week in accommodated cell. She filed 5 execution books with her last true and only confession. They visited her night before her execution and asked if she had anything to confess. She offered him an execution book, saying, This is enough." Curiously, she spontaneously appeared as a witness in a police trial for murder set for a week after her execution day. However, it was ruled that Dye was already a legal dead once a sentence. That's a threat of her evidence would be admissible. Third of her execution was not delayed. One of the even of her execution, Dye heard that the charge against Polly had been dropped. Dye was hanged by James Billiton and Newgate Prison on Wednesday, the 10th of June, 1896. Asked on the scaffold if she had anything to say, she said, "I have nothing to say," just before dropping at 9 a.m. It, it, it is uncertain how many more children Amelia Dye murdered. However, the inquiry formed other evidence of the witnesses Mountain found Dye home, including letters and many babies' clothes, point to many more. Dye's case caused a scandal. She became known as the Organa of Reading, and she inspected popular Bill, the old baby farmer, watched Mrs. Dye at the Old Bailey. Her wage is paid in time. Long ago we made big fry and roast a nice wicked old jar. The doctor-in-law was suspended and made it stricter, giving local authorities the power of the police baby farm in hoping stamp out abusers and deposit this. A newspaper, obviously, of the time that it would be in a newspaper when what she did, and but wow, that is a long case. So that is Amelia Elizabeth Hobby, later known as Dyer. What do you guys think? I think obviously I didn't realise that at that in that time that you could literally you advertise a baby in the paper. Crikey, I didn't know that. So I learnt something new there. And I think in some ways people would have gone to abuse that anyway. if you can advertise it in a paper and then probably kill them. But that probably helped the local authorities to actually let's stem this out and put more stricter rules in place so people can't do this. Um, but yeah, let me know in the comments if I pronounce any words wrong. I'm sorry, but some of that was a mouthful to say. And I tell you what, her face, you wouldn't really want her to look after your babies, I've got to say. I'm not saying that in a nasty way, but she does look very strict and very. No, you're not going to get away with anything. But yeah, let me know your thoughts.